My name is Eleanor Glennon. I'm a child and adolescent psychotherapist based in Westmeath, and I'm here to talk to you about using the sensory rooms in Westmeath libraries today. So, what is a sensory room? Some of you might already be familiar with sensory rooms and how they work and what's in them, and for some of you, you might not have actually been in one before, or your school might not have one, but you might have heard of them from maybe your child's occupational therapist or someone else on their team. So the librarians and staff in Westmeath libraries have put a huge amount of effort into creating these fabulous rooms with resources which stimulate your child's senses while they're using the room. So what that means is that there's things that the child can look at, feel, listen to. If you bring something along, you can activate your child's oral motor sense by giving them something to chew on or something to smell, like an essential oil or a new scent. The sensory room provides this lovely space where your child can do their proprioceptive or vestibular activities, which can help their body to feel really calm, while they're also activating their other senses by touching and feeling and listening to the other things that are in the room. So how do you use a sensory room? Well, to start with, it's important to link in with your local library to see what their rules are around using sensory rooms. For example, some libraries take bookings in advance, and some libraries you just arrive, and if it's quiet you can use the room for your allocated slot. However, there will always be a time limit on your time in the room. This is because if another child arrives and they need to use the room or would like to use the room, they will get told, well, you can use the room at this time or in this amount of time. So what that means is you will be told you can use the room for 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever the rule is in that library, and then you will give your child a countdown at the end to let them know how much time they have left in the room. This might be 5 minutes or 2 minutes. You know the child best and you know what will work best for them. It's important to give them this time to let their bodies know that their time in this lovely, calming, safe, relaxing room is coming to an end. This is important because we want them to be ready to rejoin the activity or to rejoin their class or peers or family and enjoy the rest of their time in the library. When you're using the room, it's important to remember that although there are loads and loads of pieces of equipment which are absolutely fabulous and colorful and eye-catching, it might be more beneficial to use a couple of things at once instead of turning everything all on at once. This is because using one or two things which are really calming and relaxing for your child can be better than having everything all on at once, because that can be a bit overstimulating and might have the opposite effect of what you're looking for. So there are loads of different ways to use the room. The most important thing is that you keep watching your child's body language and listening to the cues that they're giving you about how much they're enjoying the room. If they seem like they're getting really heightened or overexcited at any point, it might be a good idea to suggest something that you know might be calming for your child. For example, looking at the bubble machine or some of the lights. For another child, they might find listening to nature sounds or listening to the bubble machine while they're playing with some of the sensory toys really relaxing. And finally, introducing some proprioceptive or vestibular input like we were talking about when we're moving our bodies can be really calming for children. So that might mean setting up a crash pad with the beanbags that they can tumble into, rolling across the mat, setting up an obstacle course, or playing something like The Floor is Lava with the lava tiles. Finally, although there are loads of developmental benefits to using the sensory room, it's really important to remember that we want this to be a really calm, relaxing, and safe space for the child. We want them to be able to develop positive associations with coming to their local library and having this as a space that they can go to recharge when they need to. That means that although you might have a really lovely plan from your occupational therapist to work on their fine and gross motor skills or their sensory integration or whatever other goals you have to achieve, to remember that we can work on those while we can also make sure that we're giving the child a chance to feel really safe, calm, and relaxed before they leave the sensory room. Now I'm going to offer you a few tips on using the sensory room. You know this child best, whether you are their teacher, SNA, their parent, their caregiver, or another safe grown-up that will be escorting them to use the sensory room while they're at the library. I know that you will know what is heightening and what is really regulating and calming for the child. However, there are certain things that can be heightening for a lot of children. For example, sensory rooms can often be quite big spaces that have a lot of empty space. It can be really good to put some obstacles in the child's way so that they can't just run really quickly all around the room and become really heightened. This can happen sometimes when there's lots of noise and lights on in the sensory room and there's a big open space. It can almost turn more into like a disco or a birthday party than a calming time in the sensory room. So what can be helpful is setting out the bean bags or the lava tiles or the mats as almost obstacles that the child has to climb over or get through or roll over, so that they're using that proprioceptive sense, getting a sense of where their bodies are, using their muscles and their strength. There's different things that you can do while you're in the sensory room depending on the unique needs of your own child. Maybe the bus was really noisy on the way to the library. Maybe they walked into the library and the lights felt bright and there was different phones ringing and lots of noise and their favorite book wasn't where it always is. So when you think of all of that stress building up, it's so important to give them that time and space in the sensory room to get that out of their bodies. For some children, that will look like laying on a beanbag, watching the projector or the bubble machine while they're playing with sensory toys. For other children, that will look like doing an obstacle course while you're playing nature sounds. For other children, that will look like being really focused and challenging themselves on the LED light-up wall panels. However, linking in with an occupational therapist can give you a really great plan on how to integrate your child's different sensory needs while they're using the sensory room. For example, the bubble machine or the light-up wall panel or the nature sounds can be stimulating your child's senses while they're having fun and doing different activities in the room. So it's really great to get an idea of your child's unique sensory profile before you use the room or on your sensory room journey. So if you use the room a couple of times and you find that it's not really working for you, or the child is having meltdowns later that day or leaving the room quite heightened, it can be a really good idea to read some sensory resources or link in with a professional on how best to use the room to suit your child's needs. So, as you know, the purpose of a sensory room is to provide a calm, quiet, relaxing space for your child to enjoy and to help them to learn to regulate. What this means is we want to offer the child an opportunity to learn how to regulate their bodies using different sensory input. When we're not in a sensory room, we can pick up all sorts of sensory input that's out of our control. But when we're in a sensory room, we can have the lights off and focus specifically on these different activities that we're doing, which can be really, really calming. If you're noticing that your child is becoming agitated or heightened, it might be time to change up the activity. We want the child to feel like they're in control of the sensory input they're receiving while they're in the sensory room, so it can be helpful to make suggestions or show the child how you are enjoying another resource in the room. To finish up, I just wanted to talk to you about creating cozy corners within the sensory room. These can be really helpful for kids to feel contained and safe while they're in a big, unfamiliar space. If you notice that your child is feeling really calm or particularly enjoying a resource within the room, it can be a good idea to create smaller spaces using the bean bags or the mats or the different materials in the various sensory rooms in Westmeath libraries. And you can use these materials to kind of cordon off different sections of the room. This can be helpful for different reasons. Number one, depending on the library you're using, or if you're using it with a group of children, for example, from a class with a teacher, you can create smaller spaces within this large room so that the child can block out some of the other sensory input, noise, or light from the other resources which other people might be using in the room. Another reason it's really beneficial is that even if a child is using the room on their own, the room is quite big. And if they're really loving the bubble machine or the LED light up wall panels or the egg light or whatever it is, you can create a little space around them so that they can enjoy and focus on just this one particular resource. This can help them to establish a feeling of safety and calm, which is how we would like them to feel while they're in the room, and hopefully they can bring that feeling with them out of the room too and then really enjoy the rest of their time at the library and enjoy the rest of their day.